Is this live now? Are we alive? Okay. Welcome, my dear species, to the voice of one member of the species, Sometimes I think, how do people feel about these Mr. Within talks? And I'm like, depends where the questions of one's mind point to, and the questions of one's heart, There's so many ways to talk about life that in order to figure something out in this changing world, we just got to use what we have and then try to see how far we can go. Really, this world is designed for various dimensions or various ways reality. How would I say it? It's as if every person's eyes has their own human journey. By the way, these past couple episodes in the chat section, I've been, I've been recommending background music. So pretty much something that listeners and those who enjoy these talks can do is that you can open up a new tab, search ambient, and just like find whatever song you like, play it on a second tab of your browser, and set the volume to 50%. And if the song I've recommended in the chat, that's the song I was listening to before I started the episode. But there's this song called Alex Bobber, Bober dash Shielded. And that's an incredible song to listen to while this talk's going. So anyways, in this talk, what is the effort? It's like... if I was listening to my own talk, I'd be like, what is this episode about? And really, I would like to talk about intelligence. And I would like to talk about theories of intelligence we have so far. And in some sense, I would like to talk about how is it that we are considering ourselves as intelligent beings, and yet we don't know what this intelligence is. In other words, how could intelligence not know how it is intelligent? So, in my, quick research, there are 4 major types of, I would say, theories for intelligence. I'm going to read something for you, but, and then in each of these types of theories, there is theories in them as well. Especially the third one. So anyways, I guess I'll start here. Let me consult Saint Dictionary. People wonder why the dictionary exists, and it's to remind us how we name the world. So the word intelligence, I'm going to read you its definitions. It's a noun, and it says the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills, or a person or being with the ability to acquire and apply knowledge. That means it's like to be intelligent, you acquire. It's as if you receive information and then you apply the information, and that the way you apply it becomes your skill level pretty much. The second definition we have for intelligence is the collection of information of military or political value. Sure, people employed in the collection of military or political information pretty much. Yeah, that's kind of like military intelligence is like, that's a different type of intelligence. Sometimes one should wonder if war is intelligent. To me, I feel that in the future, the species is going to be too multidimensionally conscious to care about violence anymore, where the species is going to get bored of violence, and an era of genius innovation will find the surface of this earth. But anyways, right, so the ability to acquire and apply knowledge, and what knowledge is a simple way of saying it is how things are happening, you know, or how things will happen or can happen. But really, in actuality, it's how something, pretty much this is how I see it. It's as if nature, the existence of the human being is like an event. It's like a series of events, but for now, we have access to two. One event is a physical event. This is unavoidable. And if you are ignorant of it, of course, there's consequences. You know, I've understood that the hard way. But, I shouldn't say but like, pretty much there's a physical event, there's an existential event, and this event is aware of itself, but how it is aware of itself is an experiential event. It's as if two films are playing over one another, and we are looking at their integrated version and being like, yeah, that's the human being, not realizing there are dimensions, not to just perception, but to the constitution of the world. So anyways, I'm gonna journey into explaining, to the best of my ability, how the past and present perceive, in regards to the theories of intelligence, what they are. So there are four types, again, of theories for intelligence. There is psychometric theories, there is cognitive theories, there is cognitive-contextual theories for intelligence, and then there's biological theories for intelligence. The biological theory is very obvious. It's as if we are wondering about how we are intelligent based on our biological position. We have psychometric theories, and when I looked this up, the psychometric theories are pretty much evaluating every individual's intelligence. It's as if like the IQ test, or like measuring two people's intelligence, you know, or putting a puzzle in front of two different children and watching how they solve it. In regards to cognitive theories, it's like, here, let me see if I can read this for you, but really it's like studying the process of intelligence. Let me see. Okay, I'll just read this paragraph, and I think, you know, the listeners will enjoy this. What I'm reading for you is from the Oxford Handbook of School Psychology. It says the theories are grouped into four major theory types. 1. Psychometric theories. 2. Cognitive theories. 3. Cognitive contextual theories. And 4. Biological theories. Psychometric theories derive from studying individual differences in test performance on cognitive tests. Questions about the structure of human intelligence, including the importance of general intelligence, have dominated the psychometric theories. Cognitive theories derive from studying the processes involved in intelligent performance. These processes range from the very simple example inspection time to the fairly complex example working memory. I read that different theorists have focused on different processes or aspects of these processes, such as processing speed. The third is cognitive contextual theories emphasize processes that demonstrate intelligence within a particular context, such as cultural environment. Now, guys, cognitive contextual theories, I feel this is the one where every human being can, in some sense, be a researcher of intelligence in this field. So, cognitive contextual, the best way to see it is that the environment's relationship to how the individual is being intelligent. Now, there's three major theories here. It says there's Sternberg's triarchic theory, Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, and Piaget's theory of development. Sorry guys, I'm a bit nasally today. There may be a bunch of pauses in this episode, but bear with me, I'll make it interesting for you. So, where was I? Okay, now I'll explain those three theories right after this. I'll read this. Biological theories emphasize the relationship between intelligence and the brain and its functions. Numerous relationships have been found, but none have been elaborated into a detailed theory of the neuropsychology of intelligence. The chapter concludes the several questions for future research in the area of intelligence. So let me tell you something. Actually, all these types of intelligence come down to cognitive contextual, right? It's as if really we cannot ignore cognitive contextual is the main thing, because if we wonder about how the body is leading to intelligence, the body is based on the context, the environment, the world, right? If we study the processes of intelligence, in some sense we can't ignore the body's involvement, and we can't ignore the world's involvement in the body. To continue, what are the three major theories for cognitive contextual? I would say that, so here it says Sternberg's triarchic theory. This was pretty simple. I before starting this episode, I downloaded infographics. So if people pay attention to the screen, they're going to see sorry guys, just a second. I can't find the image. I gotta. Okay, okay. I found the infographic. Let me see. How can I bring it here? All right. So if people pay attention, if viewers listen, pay attention to the screen, you're gonna see the triarchic theory of intelligence. This is Sternberg's triarchic theory. It's known as that. Robert J. Sternberg. So pretty much there's three types of abilities, and these three abilities work together to create intelligent behavior, right? Sorry, it's not the picture I posted. I mean, it is, but there's a better one. Let me see if I can find. Okay, there we go. Finally. So I want the listener, the viewers, to look at the screen. We have three. This is three views on triarchic theory. Oh my God. Okay, these are the same. So pretty much we have analytical. We compare, evaluate, and analyze. There's the experiential one, insights, synthesis, adapting in unique situations, pretty much engagement with novelty. Here it says formulate new ideas to combine seemingly unrelated facts. And then there's practical, the contextual intelligence. Here it says dealing with everyday tasks relating to the world, shape the environment to maximize one's strength and compensate one's weaknesses. Pretty much the analytical, in the analytical it's you're comparing information. In experiential, you're discovering information. It has to do more of an interaction with the unknown. And in regards to the contextual, it's like how you apply your known intelligence. So it's like after you've analyzed something and you've experienced something, then you live what you've analyzed and experienced. You know, it's like knowledge. I mean, really, the purpose of life, what is it? Like, think of an inventor, and there's a vision of an invention behind the eyes of the inventor, and then the inventor invents the invention, and then the moment the invention is created, it was as if an inner potential became an outer actuality. It's as if the minds that we consider we are being behind our eyes exist. It's as if I would say human intelligence is just a translating mechanism between an inner dimension and an outer dimension. Really, one cannot even say that the world they see in front of our eyes is the only world they are having an informative influence by influence by. So anyways, this is Sternberg's triarchic theory. I'm just gonna make this easier for myself here. You know, life is just a remarkable event filled with unknown variables that our knowledge can attempt to discover, but inevitably require to become content with the unknown. You know, I feel that the unborn future generations are watching all of us right now and being like, how many people have noticed that they're, you know, the source of intelligence in this universal sector has an unknown being, an unknown presence. You know, it's as if the person thinks they're alone, and then they open their eyes and they're like, is that a world right there? You know, is this a world in front of me? When the world is with us, who can be lonely? You know, guys, the sooner I get these theories over with, then I can, you know, dive into the abstraction I like to. So, again, I'll recap Robert Sternberg's triarchic theory of intelligence. You have analytical intelligence, practical intelligence, creative intelligence. Let's just call it that, easy to remember. You know, 3 types. Your analysis is a relationship with your past, the creative intelligence is a relationship with the present, and the practical intelligence is how your relationship with the past and present allows you to enter the future. So, I'll put that here in the corner. Now, the second thing I would like to go towards, let me see what the... Yeah, so it's Gardner. So I think it's Howard Gardner. So Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence. This is pretty much it, guys. You know, I could I'll let people read it, but I'll explain it. Spatial intelligence, you know how to move around in the world. Bodily, no, sorry. Spatial intelligence, you're aware of, I would say, the properties of the space you're in, I would say. You could make good visual and spatial judgments. So it's pretty much, I guess, you know, going to the reflexes. Bodily, kinesthetic. Oh man, I'll say that again, you know. Spatial intelligence. Visual and spatial judgment. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence, physical movement, motor control. Musical intelligence, rhythm and music. Linguistic intelligence, words, language, writing. Logical mathematical skills, analyzing problems, mathematical operations, understanding and relating to others, interpersonal intelligence. You know, I'll give you an example. For example, yogis and mystics, their interpersonal intelligence is very different than, I would say, the common man. It's as if like when you find when experientially the unconditional is glimpsed, it's very hard to be a subject after you have realized you're way more than an object and a subject. It's as if like the psychology moves differently after. Intrapersonal intelligence, I was saying that for the yogis and whatnot. Intrapersonal intelligence, introspection and self-reflection. You can say this one's like where the yogis are at, it's their strong suit. Natural intelligence, seeing patterns and relationships to nature. Now, you know what's hilarious, guys? There could be millions of people, just countless people in the future coming and proposing theories of intelligence, but in reality, it can just be divided into an existential and experiential level. That's it. It's either we are creating the intelligence to the world, or the world is creating our intelligence. And if you let the world become your mind, that's another way of saying materialism. If you let your mind become the world, that's immaterialism. You see, it's honestly a relationship of two dimensions of being. You know, it's as if like we are that. It's as if our head is above water, but all the lesser species their head is underwater. It's as if the human intelligence has an ability to notice a greater world event than lesser species. You know, it's like a person sees an ant on a table, you know, and they're like, this ant may, you know, potentially has no clue how vast the cosmos is. You know? You know, pantheists may argue with me. Excuse me, not pantheists, it's panpsychists. The human being has entered. It's as if all the other animals are like, okay, let's say it this way. You know, the periodic table is level 0. The creature, the animal, is level 1. The conscious creature is level 2. So let's, you know, for the sake of saying it easily, we could say we are level 2 creatures. Now, a level 3 creature, or actually I made a mistake, guys, because the trio has to apply to us now. So I would say level 1 is like, you know, the periodic table. Level 2 is like, you know, a creature, an unconscious creature. Level 3 is a conscious creature. Level 4 is a conscious world. Or maybe an unconscious world in a conscious creature, you know. But anyways, let's say we're level 3 beings. Level 2 beings, which is another way of saying animals, their environment is their intelligence. We are, if you look at how the human being is behaving compared to all the other animals on this planet, it's as if we were like, okay, thanks nature for getting us here, but we have our own vision of how the world should happen, and we've built that, and our ancestors have lived through that, and now we are like, what do we do? So I'm gonna, you know, let's go to Jean Piaget's So Piaget says between 0 to 2 years It's sensory motor, experiences world through senses, object permanence. It's another way of saying the earliest intelligence of a human child is just, it's like it's getting, the intelligence is waking up in its body first. Then from the age 2 to 7, pre-operational stage, and it makes sense. It's as if like once the body has noticed it can function, it's as if now it's choosing how to function. So from the age 2 to 7, egocentrism, symbolic thought, mental images, theory of mind and language, which means they start teaching. I mean, of course the parents teach much earlier language, but it's like pretty much, you know, from age 2 to 7, the child is getting a sense of how it's a name, how it's an individual, you know, how it's a subject that's moving the object. From age 7 to 11, concrete, operational, logical thinking, real world skills, accomplishes conservation. Sure, I mean, this is the point where you've already become a character in the game, and now the character is interacting with the world, consciously with the world. And then we have, after age 11 above, formal, operational, abstract concepts, scientific reasoning. Something that hasn't been mentioned here is that in all these stages, from pretty much the beginning of life, there is a component to the life force that is moving the life form, and that component is novelty. And let me tell you, something that hasn't been included here is that you know how it says in stage sensory motor, then accomplishment is object permanence. It's as if all these accomplishments build upon one another, and it's as if the conscious human being that has lived consciously for some years is actually, you know what it is? It's like, this might sound bizarre, but it's like how you fuel a car without gas, right? It's as if it's fueled enough to be able to perform, but then the performance is being left to the responsibility of consciousness. You know, this is, you know how we can say that, you know, we are in a cultural era of illusion, because people don't understand that the purpose of life is to start off as a creation, wondering about the creator, to then recognize that qualities and attributes given to the creator are man's mind's designs. Beyond these cognitive contextual theories, dear listeners, this is now where I'm gonna pretty much go my own way. Really, I have respect for every human effort for the species to continue. To me, there was a moment where I will tell you, I cried. This was years ago. I cried that I had ever, like my eyes teared up, that I had ever considered enemies, you know. That's like, I'll tell you, it's something where it's like the moment you realize that regardless of how life is happening in front of your eyes, it is a massive, it's like a strange scenario. You know, it's as if something in nature was like, all right, we're gonna have, you know, material spheres hovering in empty space with creatures on them, you know. That means the fact that the universe isn't just like, you know, a flat plane where we can't see the edges. It's as if like the world, the planet has a shape, and our eyes are shaped similarly to the planet. I mean, take that in. Something in nature loves spheres, you know. I remember I wrote this book called God-like Spheres. I think I talked about this in 2020, 2019, something. Now, this is what I will say about intelligence. This is Mr. Within's. I'm gonna try to, in this episode, because, you know, to me it's When the challenge is greater, the more exciting the action becomes. I'm going to challenge myself in this episode to share with the listeners in the quickest, most efficient way all the different ways for now I have discovered how intelligence can move for one human being. So, it's as if we have reached an era where what was a secret has become just a multidimensional birthright. May these words be held properly by the advanced civilization. So, in my life, I would say that let me say it this way. To me, there is 4 types of possibilities to existence. I call this ring of the absent heaven, that's my poetic name for it, but it's pretty much, you can say it's Mr. Within 0, 1, 2, the infinity symbol, and then, theory of existential possibility. Pretty much I have realized that one way that a creature can be intelligent is that it goes towards what is known as the void. The void is something that, naturally, instinctually, there's a fear built into biology, right? It was survival, as if it was like a creature that didn't want to exit when it had to. That's really what survival of the fittest was. So one approach to life is that, this is seriously I'm saying, if you're a nihilist, maybe you can smile for once when I say this, but one way to look at the whole world is that emptiness is the truth. The void, the absence, the ability for there to suddenly be nothing. The other view is, I would say, a singular view. And I would say this is what spirituality has been possessed by in the New Age community, right? It's not that oneness is wrong. It's that oneness is meaningless. It cannot have meaning. Meaning exists in a dualistic context. It's as if a being existing purely in a oneness realm is like a personality-less energy field everywhere. Like, sure, but we evolved beyond just an energetic singular presence. It's as if the whole universe could be alive, but our lives matter. And they specifically matter to us and the destiny of our species. Imagine you wondering about your own destiny. All right, what's going to happen to me in this world? It's like sometimes I look at nature, I'm like, nature, what's up? Like what's going to happen? Am I like, and I have realized that the more I have understood how my nature is being, like I have, at least my attitude is that I am an ally of not just what I cherry pick in the world. I am an ally of the world, an ally of the realm. This was an archetype that I would say I didn't look for, but it found, I didn't find, but it found me. It was as if, like, imagine one type of enlightenment being, you suddenly realize you're not your memory and you're not your thoughts. You're not the past. You're the freedom of the novelty of the future. Like, that's a supreme enlightenment. Then there's another supreme enlightenment where the being realizes, regardless of how many different ways, how many ways an animal moves in the space-time continuum, there is a great surrendering of the ego, where I would tell you this way, like, I'm trying to tell you the second and great enlightenment for me was to recognize that simultaneously as I am being whoever I am individually, the life of the collective system is, it's as if, to me, what the species has done, it will do is more interesting than what I will ever in this lifetime. It's as if some people want, personal success, and those who want impersonal success, it's as if tears of joy would fall on, the history books of the future. I am telling you, there is something so bigger than one's own conceptions on their soul. It's as if, like, the presence of life, you don't even need oneness as a concept anymore. Then we go to the second way to view this whole world and life, and this is really duality. I don't need to say anything about this, because this is really where everybody's listening to me, probably. I don't know, maybe there could be like this liberated, being listening to these talks of mine, selflessly listening. But I'm telling you, it's like duality is we have been hamsters running in this wheel from the moment that a sort of psychological self developed. Imagine a person's like, I hate myself. And then they're like, wait a minute though, what do I hate though? And then they think about it and they're like, okay, I hate, let's say, the physical, the object dimension. And then the person's like, wait a minute, there's a subjective dimension. And the person's like, I hate my subjective dimension. And then they're like, wait, it's like a paradoxical impossibility that the mind that is creating a value cannot see itself valueless. It's another way of saying to an eternal awareness, non-existence exists if it's being acknowledged. You see, sure, individually we are the divinity in the room. We are the most, like, seriously, right now I'm looking around me on this balcony and there's just, objects around me. It's as if, like, the mind is instantly a sort of, it's as if when intelligence becomes responsible for its world, it experiences an ability to shift from the dualistic perspective of life into a rhythm of nature. You might not believe it, but the ultimate truth of this world of ours, it is actually within how the whole moment is being aware as itself. It's as if, like, this is a bizarre thing I'm gonna say, but I'm just gonna say it so the idea exists. Imagine, like, from, like, how you see in, like, these how would I tell you? Imagine this hypothetical scenario where the angel of death came to take a person's body, to take them away. And then the person was out of their body, like standing beside their body, like they were being, like, the whole moment, They were out of the body because the body was within the moment. So imagine somebody out of their body and death comes and, and in some sense, let's say death comes to take the body and death is like, wait a minute, what's happening here? This is a story, guys, a hypothetical story. And it becomes this scenario where the person's like, it's like, do your thing, angel of death. I am not the body. I don't know what you're taking, It's as if the person's like, like, before death can take life is the only thing there's a life to death. death has a life. And when I say death has a life, I am not ignorantly saying this word. I am saying that we started from the unknown, we entertained known simulations, we noticed the unknown as we began becoming acquainted with the unknown. That is when we will be fearless towards death. That means it's as if there's a dimension to death that internally the being requires to be freed of. You need to be free yourself from the subjective positioning of any concept, and then you have of anything, and then you have the objective position. And really what it is that the mind realizes the fragility of how nature is positioned. You know, it was like so many human beings prayed for a better future until, you know, a voice came and said, hey, how about you guys build it? You know, you know, can you imagine a person asked, you know, prayed to God, God, I want to go to paradise. And God's like, oh, yeah? God's like, oh, yeah, you want to go to paradise? Well, first, try to build it. And if you can't, I'll let you come to paradise. As if build paradise on earth, and if it's impossible, sure, you know, you can go to paradise. You know. Imagine a philosopher went to heaven, and you know they were talking to the voice of God, you know, and the person's like, God, the philosopher's like, I got a question, God. Does paradise have a paradise? Do you have a paradise for yourself? And in some sense, the inconceivable sings its sermons in silence. A species that doesn't fear the dimensions of its perception is a liberated species. And this is a challenge for all of us. It's as if the person's like, how would the victory of mankind look like? That means we need every child in every educational system wondering about, in some sense, 100,000 years from now, how would the species advance? That should be the only homework till the end of time. You know, to advance civilization means the species is using its resources well. I don't know why when I was young, like I was born in 1991, and I would tell you, in my youth, me and my twin brother, like as a cartoon, we would see this Power Ranger thing, and the whole archetype, the way the story was designed, was that individual points of ability united to become a collective ability, as if it's as if all robots connected to create one giant robot. Now the future generations have to be able to not only fathom the collective humanity, but wonder about what, on a practical level, how would the intelligence function? Do you know? It's as if there's no point of having the greatest idea on earth, but it just remains as an idea. You know, Victor Hugo says nothing is more powerful than an idea in which its time has come. This is another way of saying that nature's voice is louder than man. Intelligence is like a self-mystery that reveals how the world was kept to be separate from oneself. You see, after you've looked at this world and you're like, okay, it could totally be empty, you know, the void is view. Let's say you've looked at this world from a singularian view, where you're pretty much like, you know, it's all one. It's like oneness can't die. To me, sure, you can see like spiritual people being enlightened through the experience of oneness, but you could also see, you know, souls that have cowered away. It's as if you saw emptiness and you're like, okay, it can all be meaningless. Then you look at it as a from singularian view, and then you're like, it's all filled with meaning. It is its own meaning. Every moment is being like every moment's meaning. And then you have this view that it is actually a dualistic system, and this is the strange thing, that all those Buddhists that want to get out of the cycle of karma, they're actually still being duality worshippers. We are in the era of duality worship. The final era is infinity worship, and infinity worship means that a finite creature began becoming fascinated with its potential to not just explore the endless, but to be it. We're pretty far away. Like, I'll be surprised if in my lifetime, collectively speaking, the species has a philosophical fascination with infinity. I think it's too soon. Right now, still there's a self-temporary obsession. It's as if just because the outer realm is ending doesn't necessarily mean the inner realm ends. You know when the infinite era will begin? When human beings, just like how normal it is for us to be temporary, it's going to be the opposite. When that time comes, like, that's far away. I'm giving that maybe like 1,000 years. And I'll be fascinated. I have this feeling like geniuses will be born in the future where they may actually understand the value of vision. We don't have eyes to see only. We have eyes to become the future. Why else are we alive in the present? That means, what is the purpose of the past? To continue to the present, to be present. What is the purpose of the present? To realize it is the starting point. And in some sense, the moment the presence of energy is realized to be timelessly everywhere, the psychology, it's as if the relationship of a subject with an object becomes hilarious when the object is unconditionally being. That means the energy is not created or destroyed. It's like there's something it's like the cost to matter is energy. Even philosophically speaking. I feel some things that need to happen on this planet is that global associations need to begin based on depicting qualities of a human being rather than a specific. You see, we are pretty much outgrowing agendaism when realizing it's as if in front of our eyes one physical existential public server, behind our eyes everybody has their own subjective inner server, inner realms, right? It's as if you have an inner life simultaneously as you're hearing me, do you know, in the outer life. And it's remarkable how sound travels to become meaning. It's remarkable that the species is still around, you know. It's as if, sure, you can fear like crazy people destroying the world, but at the same time, you know, it's as if that fear goes away when you realize the value of what we have now. You know, there was a time where I was writing science fiction, guys, and when I was writing, I felt this sorrow that in the future, the trees may be in history books. There has to be an effort in all media, like I hope Hollywood is listening, in trying to accurately and incredibly and beautifully and efficiently capture the moments of the world. Do you know? It's as if I understand the value of art, but at the same time there is an unknown world for the whole species to discover. You see, the inner life and outer life, they can have so many different types of relationships, you know. It's like when a person is tired, it's easier for them to get angry. If the inner realms are impatient with the outer realms, this is where suffering happens. That means like you can say the concept of depression. I remember I read the statistic. It was like, you know, like a shitload of people on the planet are depressed. And I was thinking like, why? And then I realized it's because in our inner lives, it's as if the expectation, it's as if our desires for our self in our inner life are too beyond the outer life. You know, this is when a person reaches the edge of complexity and you have two choices: either stop existing or you pilot back down from complexity to simplicity, and now wonder based on the complex dimensions your mind was exposed to. You see, it's like on some level, sure, a human being on Earth, on another level, as a very unique state of mind. And pretty much, you know, the symbols attributed to what I'm saying here is 0, 1, 2, and then the infinity symbol. And they circle. That means if you were an infinite being, your fascination would be in the void. If you were in some sense a void being, your fascination would be in regards to the singular. If you were a singular being, your fascination would go to dualism. It's as if chaos and order are oneness's younger siblings. And from a chaotic and ordered universe, the fascination is towards the infinite, right? This is why I'm saying oneness for our modern times is a sort of regression out of the responsibility to use duality, to go towards infinity, to then honestly realize the nature of the finite, and then eventually, how would I tell you, when the eyes of your eyes before these eyes are found, it's as if how do I say it? It is only the human being that has created the concept of fear. It's as if in greater dimensions there is a contentment of space with itself where it's like a supreme allowance. It's as if in the most honest moment of Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita, this archer in a battlefield, in his most honest and troubling moment in his life, it's as if God, the avatar of God, Krishna, appears. And Krishna, in some sense, for Arjuna to gain Krishna's trust, this avatar of God reveals the secrets of the nature of reality to Arjuna. And then Arjuna eventually realizes that the true nature of what we are considering as a physiological animal and a psychological personality, it is actually the presence of an unconditional being. That means, like for the human being, sure, culturally we consider the idea of life and death, but to an energetic being, it's as if we are being an eternal memory of the cosmos. How do I say this? I mean, Plato even pointed to this when he said time is the moving image of eternity. We are creatures in time. We fear the outcomes in time, right? But in some sense, imagine all the knowledge humanity had, that was just one side of the coin. The observable universe is one side of the coin. What do we do with the unobservable? Were the mystics and yogis and meditators ahead of their time when they were in some sense moving to establishing experiential relationships with the inconceivable? Which is another way of saying, like, if you want to experience an unknown world, you require the knowing of an unknown self. That unknown self, for most people, because they can't let go of, they can't, like, I would say not every person has a comfort observing from a dehumanized state and a humanized state. A dehumanized state is a selfless state. That means, believe it or not, it's as if true moments in life are moments where direct experience is engaged beyond abstract ideological positioning. It's as if before the mind can get an idea of what is happening, something is happening. And that direct experience is not just a liberating force. It's just that being a human being is a phase. The rise and fall of civilizations is a phase. The species has to find a fearless state of mind to then unlock the ultimate ability. Like, you have to think about greatness. Do you know, that would be a good teacher, no? Like, I wish there was a teacher in my youth who was like, all right, kids, your assignment, your final year assignment is to write an essay, let's say, on greatness. Write an essay on what does greatness mean? If there were, hypothetically, extraterrestrials in the sky, they would be laughing at us. They would be laughing at the human species. They'd be like, you guys don't realize how advanced your existential position is. And it's as if, like, honestly, the extraterrestrials will laugh at the laziness of our species. Its inability to realize that novelty and updating programs and backup systems are the most important thing. It's as if the species is at war when there is the concept of extinction. It is at war with its own decisions designing its future. To be honest, it's like we are blessed that we don't have such a serious event. To me, it's kind of like this, where I'm like wondering, okay, I'm looking at the world right now, and what's going to happen to the world? Let's say, hypothetically, there will come in the future, like for sure, the introduction of greater intelligences than we've ever had historically recorded. Something very unique is happening with the human species, aside from this, sort of ineffable reason for why a biological program had to keep passing on, right? It's as if, like, on one level, sure, it's different generations of human beings being born, but on another level, it could be one being that is in some sense traveling through a sort of DNA, as if it's as if DNA is a sort of DNA is a rhythm. Every person has their own unique ability, like an antenna, to receive their intelligence, right? It's all about if you're holding yourself in simple context or a complex context, you know. Not only we can say there are other dimensions, we can say that every person can create their own meaning of multidimensionality. So I'm gonna post in the chat section a song I'm listening to right now, so I'm giving this talk. Imagine you saw 8 billion plus human beings being 8 billion plus musicians. And each musician, based on their DNA being different, they have a different an invention, an instrument that nobody else has, right? So imagine 8 billion musicians wondering, why am I an instrument, in this world? And suddenly, you realize the purpose of the 8 billion musicians in the world is to, in some sense, play the songs of their greatest visions. It's as if the advanced civilization is going to become like a symphony where every person, every musician suddenly starts tuning into it, And similarly, how would that relate to the human archetype and culture? The future, I would predict in the next 300, 400 years, will experience a freedom that's inconceivable to us now. What can I say? Our eyes open. Attention holds the whole moment as itself. And really, through an inanimate and animate filter, it's as if there are shapes, colors, and space. And then there's shapes, colors, and space that know they are being shapes, colors, and space. That means consciousness is just a dimension. It's like the planet has a mind, and when the human being imagines, it's another way of saying nature is moving that way in that moment. The best thing I can say, Mr.Within can say, is really the human species needs to pause the ideological story and video game of life and for a moment wonder how reality deserves to happen. When I say how reality deserves, that means every person has to attempt to wonder about how their most advanced state of being would look like. This is This is a must for the worthy. There's so many ways to look at life. It's designed that way. And the edgeless cosmos gives us a clue that the physical realm is not here to be measured. It is not actually here to be understood. It's here to be utilized. The meaning of life is not to experience life. It is to pilot life. A multidimensional being is piloting through various dimensions, and it has named itself in one dimension and thinks it is anchored by its matter. It's as if like the wise release matter. Matter is like something held. It's as if there's ignorant able beings, and the ignorant able beings control other beings, and then there's wise, let's say wise greater beings, where they in some sense realize that freedom is the greatest platform for the liftoff of creativity. The species is yearning for an advanced freedom, and I am just one of the early birds who's talking about it. This world is so great that for us to not wonder about the greatness of our consciousness is a disservice to the potential that could have been. The songs of the advanced civilization, they're going to start emotionally. The species, based on its conduct, whether efficient or inefficient, if it's like if the human species, let's say going from 2022 onwards, like if the species keeps making mistakes, it would be hard to watch. It would be as if the genius that was about to enter the world suddenly, face palms itself. But if the species starts making efficient decisions, and efficient decisions means more levels of information, but it doesn't mean these more levels of information need to define you. It is time for the human species to acknowledge that the mind renders us as a multidimensional being. And so there are mysteries surrounding reality and even the concept of imagination. Like if somebody says, hey, Mr.Within, what's beyond your outer realm and inner realm? You know what I will tell you? This might be a bit overwhelming for some, but I'll tell people my real opinion, for now at least. I think what is actually going on this planet is that everything we see is a simulation. These simulations are actually orb spheres of energy that are hovering on lifeless planets. These spheres of energy, inside them are a conscious living universe designed in the way where the edge of the cosmos mirrors the limits of the ability of the perceiver. So what I'm trying to tell you is that being a human being in a world is a very small percentage of what is actually happening in this world of ours, and in regards to how there are unknown dimensions that have been staring at us from the beginning of our birth. You see, the species has an ability now, and it's as if the cosmos is waiting. It's as if, like, let's say, in the year, I don't know, let's say 3023, suddenly, like, humanity had confirmed there existed some sort of galactic celestial, organization. It's as if we were under galactic surveillance, and we're like, yo, it's like, it's like, yo, we're being watched without by greater dimensions. But when I say greater, ethics changes for every species. That means that imagine you were a galactic philosopher. You had to, in some sense, develop a sort of system where you could place all the philosophies that had arose from all the planets populated with life in the cosmos. It's like the compilation it's as if the attempt to classify the macrocosm, it's as if, like, there was a reason the gods fought the Titans. Mythology is so badass that it talks about an event that happened way before, like long ago, where it was an event between multidimensional beings and like lesser beings. It was like a battle between lesser beings and higher beings, right? And it was I shouldn't say lesser higher. I should say it was a battle between immortals and immortal immortal creatures and eternal beings, which were space. It was pretty much a battle between the mind of matter and the mind of space. Okay. Now, this battle in Vedic mythology is the battle of the Devas and the Asuras. In the Greek mythology, the battle of the gods with the Titan. What ends up happening is that the battle between these two dimensions, the battle between the immortal and the eternal, in some sense, it ended up being a solidified universe of its own, where mind and matter self-simulate. You see, it's as if when you wonder about how can it be even that you are beyond the body, you'll suddenly realize that what the ego is, what the idea of self is actually how attention is on a subjective phenomenon, subjective event. Right now, these words that are being expressed, these words are arising, and they arise from an emotional, inconceivable contentment level, but they also arise from, how would I tell you? It's as if when you wonder about the edge of the world, everybody becomes a pioneer. There won't be students and teachers in the future anymore. Everybody would just be an explorer, an honorable member of an advanced civilization, an advanced member of an advanced civilization. The greatest argument for an advanced civilization is just to get to see how it would look like. Like right now we're experiencing, let's say, collective inefficiency, and it's as if like all the visions and dreams for collective efficiency have to be now considered, like the depth of it has to be considered, the emotional level of life and its relationship with action, I would say it's evocation. Emotions are actually like a shapeless, they're shapeless meanings. I don't know how to say it. What is looking out through the eyes of 8 billion human beings? And what is the greatest outcome? And the greatest outcome is to go as far as you can, and then through, I would say, the humility of your of the inner act, it's as if, how would I say it? You become the life of the world, when before you were just the life of your world. An advanced civilization is advanced from the beginning. That means really for now in 2022, people are just waiting for miracles. We are at the waiting, for ourselves phase of human history. All our ancestors survive to the best of their ability for us to be here now. And what is the human being doing? It is just, I would say, it is thriving through being. You see, like the mind gives us an ability. When you think about the concept of the internet, it's like, imagine like a penguin suddenly had enough consciousness to have a personality, and then we explained to the penguin, like, do you know what the internet is? And the penguin's like, no way. Like, it's gonna freak out like lesser beings, like the type of intelligence we're using. People don't realize, like, even speaking on a phone with someone else, that's like teleportation of sound instantly. It's like sound teleportation exists. 8 billion creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Pretty much, I would say, the person has to wonder about the origin of their own intelligence, and wonder about the origin of the intelligence of others in the environment, and then wonder about the origin of the intelligence of the world, and then begin to prioritize where the significance of an attention that can pilot needs to go on. Really what it is like either the world moves the self, or the self attempts to move the world before it becomes the world moving the self again. Intelligence experientially knows, on the level of experience, life is a sort of remembrance. I would say what the purpose of the human mind is to shift from unconscious reaction to conscious response. And conscious response means you begin piloting. Free will is something that is it's like a force, and this force it based on how the person is generating a value system to what they're seeing, this force reacts or responds. It's as if our minds are not just in our bodies, our minds are being the world where our bodies being in. The mystery of intelligence is so incredible that it's like whatever answer, even if somebody was like, hey guys, here's the explanation for what consciousness is, it's like the infinity is too fascinating to believe or disbelieve. It's as if the future is just going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating in a way where all human beings alive in 2022 would laugh at themselves if they knew where the world is going. It is not it's how much effort towards novelty happens in the lifetime. It's like an art. It's like poetically the artist that wondered about was he going to go to heaven or hell? To realize that the mind is not just a world generator, guys. The mind can, in some sense, tunnel through worlds. Imagination is like an invisible room over the room that we're actually physically in. And this invisible room has an ability to instantly, by just the mere feeling of an intent, project vision. You see, it's as if it's like martial art master that forgot that he was a martial art master. And suddenly, at a very important moment, suddenly the memories, were revisited and unlocked. Right? Like, ability is, it's just our future. Do we want to experience what 8 billion advanced, efficient human beings would look like, or would we just want to be like, okay, everybody do whatever you want in a world that's like, it's as if we're ignoring the ability of life. We are ignoring our multidimensional birthright to realize that thoughts do not contain us. We are their directors. People don't realize this, but to be a director of a film is to be the god of the karma of an artificial reality. The body has a relationship with the world. This existential relationship has an unknown and known dimension. The mind has a relationship with the body and has a relationship with itself, and both of those relationships have known and unknown dimensions. And when a body wonders what it is, the person's like, oh yeah, I'm a mind, I'm looking at my body. And then the person's like, wait a minute, how is the mind being looked at, or what is looking at the mind? And then through, usually how it happens is an instantaneous pulse of stillness and silence, there is a glimpse that what is being is unconditional to all the conditions that are defining how we are seeing it. It's as if it's like the soul is free in a way that when the personality, when the ego turns around, it no longer sees the shadows, it sees its source. Carl Jung was so smart, he did pretty much the reverse of what the yogis did. The yogis went towards the source of intelligence. That they used that approach to discover it. Carl Jung was that you have to look at the shadow of intelligence, and then you get a sense of the spectrum, The mind is poetically a biochemical world engine. This world engine, when it becomes conscious of itself, it'll realize space is dehumanized. If our mind is space, there's nothing to fear about any human archetype. It's all geometry in the void. And it is our attention that makes matter come alive, which is another way of saying space is moving matter. This is when you become a universal being, This is why deep sleep is such a divine state where there is no ego, and it's pretty much like the actual question mark. In the Ribu Gita, this ancient book, there's this passage that says there's 3 states pretty much: the conscious state, the conscious waking state, the dream state, the deep sleep state. And then it says there's this 4th state. That 4th state is known as Turiya. And Turiya means how consciousness has observed the conditions of its existence to a point where it has started to associate with the causal state of being, which is another way of saying it's as if the effect realizing the cause, and then starts functioning as the cause, and then the world becomes your effect, which is another way of saying that a causal entity can't die. By definition, it can't die. When some part of this intelligence in the human life suddenly associates with an inconceivable state, it's as if emptiness is holding meaning in our and what does that mean? And what do our meanings mean then? It's as if there is Philosophy is honestly a field where if your mind's a warrior, you should go into. Philosophy is actually like, we can have conceptual wars and avoid physical wars, right? Imagine all the what do you call it? All the leaders of, let's say, the United Nations. Let's say when there was war, they were like the two countries that had gone to war. They were forced to stay in a room under global surveillance, and the rooms won't open until these two countries have reached a peace treaty. You know, and a peace treaty means a sort of negotiation. That means it's like a salesman looks at war and it's like these idiots didn't know how to talk. You know? But you know, of course, playfully, I'm saying all of these. You know, I'm just a human being who wonders about the potential of life, and I always wonder about the efficient vision. And you know, sometimes the mind gives the individual an ability to acknowledge how its past has passed, how the present has nowhere else to go other than be present, and how the future is in some sense the opportunity of the dimensions of the past and the present to, in some sense, it's as if we're trying to find the greatest combination. Like, you know what it is? It's as if, like, imagine 8 billion designers wanting to design an advanced civilization. Okay, and they're all like, you know, let's say in a meeting room, and the discussion goes something like this, that the smartest thing that maybe 8 billion designers can do is that they actually start creating and pushing forth an effort towards their own advanced civilization. What I'm trying to say here is that an advanced civilization has two sides like a coin. One side is physically how it looks like. The other side of the coin is the psychology of the members of all those advanced beings constituting the advanced civilization. Right? It's as if psychology in the future is going to become an honorable domain of a relationship of an individual with its collective effort. Imagine like the nations, you know, in a parallel universe of Earth were about to go to war, and this young child ran into the United Nations and started scolding all the leaders, imagine. And this young child said, how have, do you know, the eyes of the species of this planet not yet seen the incredible potential that surpasses any ego in Greek? You know, it's like going to like an archetype of evil and being like, you want to be evil? Great. First build the advanced civilization, get to see what the most advanced state of being is, then implement the program of your nature, because that's really what life is. To be free from life is another way of saying to find the concept that is being the context, or in some sense to enter the inconceivable. And when you enter the inconceivable, it's like a pilot ejecting out of a plane of existence. So what tends to happen is that the pilot has to inevitably land on some plane. The nature of attention is that because it wants to keep the momentum of its past life, it has to instantly choose a future life, because that's what it's acquainted to. But the nature of the wise was to recognize that regardless of any personality, the nature had a soul. The world has a soul, dear listeners. And this is where I would say true devotion for the unknown begins. Not an ideological, you know, enslaving position, but just a view that there is a hidden greatness to the world, and now better than any time is the effort for it, you know. That means, should the greatness of the future possess, you know, the free will of the past? Greatness reveals its importance instantly. What that means is that I have faith that our species will choose the greatest outcome, because it is fascinated to know what it would be. How could intelligence not know how it is intelligent? That's, you know, the answer becomes impossible when intelligence is the nature of being. That means a being that has, become at peace with the physical, with the objective realms, with the outer realms. A being that has become content with the inner realms, as if they have not only seen how matter changes, they have seen how, subjects change. And after you realize that the object and the subject are being witnessed simultaneously as the whole moment of awareness, then the person realizes the whole moment of awareness is not what's in it. What that means is that with one conscious breath, the whole universe can stare back.